let's talk about this for a bit. So I am launching Track Ukraine. I've already talked about it on the channel. We haven't posted any official announcements of the launch from the accounts and like started really promoting them. We've just I made one post, and now Ground Game and PV have boosted that post, as you can see here, right? So people are starting to follow the account. If you want to follow Track Ukraine, it is at Track Ukraine. You can see it there, at Track Ukraine. Now, the goal of Track Ukraine, as we've discussed before, is two main goals. Number one, transparency. Nobody can hide through obscuring your position or not stating your position about the largest war currently going on the planet, the most deadly war currently going on the planet that has been going on since 2014, but has been raging at the full scale to make it the largest war, most deadly war on the planet, going on 5 years. At this point, you should have a position if you're either in office and you've had votes on it before, or you're running for office and you've chosen not to, either say something about it, or you have said something about it, that should be listed. If you haven't said anything about it, that should be listed, regardless if it's positive, negative, XYZ. I think that it makes sense considering the scale of the impact our country has on the war and the promises our nation has made and the general public support in the United States for Ukraine, not only amongst the general population, but especially within independents and Democrats. There are still Republicans that support Ukraine, but it has been something that is mostly supported. When you see 77 to 80% of Americans support, when you see these margins, when you ask, should we support Ukraine? And then you get, should we give them defensive aid? When you poll them question-wise like that, 77 to 80%, you have like really, really large margins. And the Democratic Party, talking 98%, 95%, we're in the 90s, right? We're in the 90s no matter what. So I think that due to the public interest, people should know. But I also think that we should have a means to engage with campaigns. That means having ambassadorships that can go talk to people, because obviously when we list a position, we're not a neutral organization. We will list you green, yellow, or red when it comes to whether you have a position that we think abandons Ukraine and doesn't treat the issue seriously, as we've had to deal with for quite a long time, not only from Republican administrations, but Democratic administrations as well. Or you're going to treat the issue seriously, you are going to support Ukraine aid, and that when Democrats take back the House, you will be a positive voice in the room. You will not be yawning and saying, well, let me deal with my pet issue, right? And that our national commitment to that nation is not as important to you. That should be listed, what your position is, and there should be a means to possibly pressure them through public shaming, because this is politics, The reason APAC tracker exists, there's a reason. And I think that there could be trackers for any amount of issues, and for a public use reason, a use of the public wanting to know, I think that that's important. But I think the main thing, and what I would like to do, and I want to always emphasize that this is the main thing, is that I want ambassadors, people who have directly experienced the war, to talk to people authentically. Now, this will not work with everyone, okay? I don't know if that will work with someone like Victor Gonzalez, a Democrat who met with the Russian delegation, made that meeting with those people who all support the war, who supported it at the start, support continuing it now, and have said warmongering statements about the war, okay? If a Democrat met with Ben Gvir, that would be a controversy. A Democrat meeting with these types of people, giving the air of bipartisanship to what should have been Republican shame, making it harder to go after Republicans for it, and making it easier for the Russians to make propaganda out of it, which they did endlessly. It got us nowhere closer to peace. Okay, Tulsi Gabbard's peacemaking in Syria with Bashar al-Assad did much more to shame herself than bring us anywhere closer to peace, obviously. So, I think that for some people, if it's cynical and they're not answering questions, then obviously no matter how much we engage and how much we would like to move people authentically through discussions that are policy oriented about the effect of colonized people, about the effect on occupied people, about the effect of those who are having their homes bombed, schools bombed, hospital bombed, communities destroyed, villages displaced, grain stolen, and having their homes given to the soldiers that occupied them. I think that in those cynical cases that we are all in our right to go after them politically online and even do things like aiming towards their district and advertising, making our best to make an impact. I've seen Rizome do it. When it comes to Victor Gonzalez, they bought a billboard in his district in Spanish talking about his meeting with the Russians. So I'm not even the first organization to say that that's a need. I just don't think I'll play as nice as Rizome. That doesn't mean, you know, the contacts that we have with Rizome isn't like, you know, those are good people. I know people who do those, like the stuff that they do in Capitol Hill, you know, the good people. I just think that you need carrots and you need sticks and you need different strategies. You need multi-pronged approaches, especially if our goal is to create the social stigma around the abandoning of people who are reliant on us for their support and who are there for us, and we should be there for them. They were there for us when it came to giving up the atomic weapons their scientists designed. It was Ukrainians scientists. It was Ukraine science industry. So not only led the way on the space race from the Soviet Union, but also led the way on their atomic weapons program. I speak to a lot of these scientists in Ukraine. They're very intelligent people from the Soviet age, very old. They're losing more and more of that great generation. But a few of them are still kicking around. I see the type of work they're doing. I was looking at some projects earlier today, man. Those contraptions are stuff I could never thought of. So I think that morally compels me to go against people who are negligently don't care, or cynically are using the issue, or feel that there's somehow an avenue for them to be a Russophile or a isolationist that abandons America's commitments and says the response to the age of multipolarity or a different type of polarity or a different system altogether is to retreat inward, which has never worked, and to abandon those who trusted us with their security. You know, it creates this image of America as a den of snakes, and I hate that image. So I think that this is good work to go after those people. But at the end of the day, it's much more productive, and I think it's also, to me personally, much more morally astute, morally correct to engage and try to change minds with hearts and minds. Tomorrow I have a meeting with some people who design prosthetics for civilians and members of the armed forces that have lost their limbs. You know, children who have lost their limbs, the elderly that have lost their limbs. Sadly, the majority of the casualties I have seen on the front have been elderly people who felt that they could not evacuate for any number of reasons that we cannot get into now. And so this type of work is really important in Ukraine, but it also gives them a unique perspective by making prosthetics. You know, if shooting down a ballistic missile that could tear off children's arms and legs, I mean, that is something that would be moral of the United States to do, to assist the Ukrainians in doing that, as we have before, with no spiraling of the conflict. It showed the conflict not to spiral by giving them that support. It didn't spiral. So all of the impact that happens from that support is more protected lives. And so being able to talk to the people about, yes, it was this missile that hit this house and then they lost their arm and we're working with them and these are the materials that are available, talking to soldiers about the effects that the war has had on them psychologically and why they felt it was necessary for them to defend their villages because they don't want their village home to be taken by the soldiers that steal it from their family, from their grandmother, from their extended family. Talking to the civilians that have been wounded, talking to the victims of war crimes, which I know many, talking to those hunted in the human safari, highlighting those voices and having people talk to them earnestly. I do think that will be convincing. I do. If you earnestly care and you're getting involved in politics because you're coming from the heart. I understand that the way that this politics might look, it might be definitely for first-time candidates or people who have not engaged with this before, it might be, somewhat intimidating, but it doesn't come from a place of malice. I have no interest in trying to sabotage progressive candidates. I want progressive candidates to win. I think this will hurt progressive candidates and will hurt the movement if it gets in there. And I think there's a reason people don't like John Fetterman. And much of the Democratic base will have a similarly negative reaction to anyone in there. It's like, Ukraine, And so I'm not saying that this is coming from a place of malice. It can come from a place of a lack of knowledge, of not knowing it because you don't see it, because you never heard the words human safari until I mentioned them, or until one of the ambassadors mentioned them. But that doesn't mean that we can live in that ignorance going on 5 years into this war. This type of conversation was inevitable to be had with these campaigns eventually. It's just better that it happens earlier rather than later, and it's not in retrospect saying, oh, yeah, we really should have done that. Oh, if I was we really should have done this. We really should have done that. At that point, the corpses are already there. And so I felt compelled. And the combination of this approach that I have used so far, I think, has been very productive. I have gotten a lot of emails. I've gotten a lot of DMs telling me positive things. Well, not really emails, mostly DMs. Okay, you guys are Discord focused and Twitter focused, it seems. And it seems to be there seems to be a lot of people who wanted an outlet, who wanted to do something, who saw some of this some negative commentary taking over, or saw the inaction from the Democratic Party. And it's one thing to say, yeah, I support Ukraine. It's another thing to want to do something about it, or to feel that energy in your chest to do something about it, And so I've gotten a very positive response from both my community, other streamer communities, and from the broader left online, and from members, even people outside of the left, even though, of course, I am a lefty. I'm a queer with this type of hair. I was the hook was going to get me. The hook was going to get me. So, number one, I want to say thank you to all the positive community response. I'm sure that as we actually formally start promoting the progressive, the Ukraine Tracker account, at Track Ukraine, more and more of you guys are gonna jump up. Number two, I want to say that the reaction from content creators has been positive. In fact, I haven't gotten a negative reaction yet from a content creator. There are content creators that I expect to talk to about this. I've already talked to, of course, Soypill, who was at the Progressive Victory event. But I've already seen other streamers have covered it and watched it on their streams, reacted to my conversation with Soypill. And so I've seen mostly, again, really only positive reactions from streamers. There's other streamers that I plan to go onto their programs to talk to them about it. Streamers that I would be interested in talking to, and I know I already have personal contacts with, and we will be talking to, will be streamers like Vosh Vidya, to use the old name. Or what was his? Irish Laddie. I remember when his name was Irish Laddie, okay? Go back years at this point. We've been engaging back and forth on the issue of foreign policy. That is, of course, when he wasn't saying, nuke XYZ location, getting banned off of the Twitch, and before coming back like a bearded phoenix. So we're going to talk to creators like that. I'm also going to be talking to other creators. I'm going to be messaging as many as I can to talk and promote this. But I'm also going to be talking to creators that are outside of my traditional framework, right? For example, Majority Report. I have friends who have contacts at the Majority Report. We'll see if maybe something there can happen. Don't know if it will. But we're really looking at doing a media circuit, not even necessarily just to talk about Track Ukraine, but to just talk about where the war stands, because I'm realizing much of the left, when I talk to them, I look in their eyes about what I've seen, they look at me like I'm telling them this for the first time, and like they're hearing of these things for the first time. When I talk about the use of children on Telegram saying, hey, we'll give you this amount of money that's way more than the average person now can get due to wartime conditions. We'll give you this money if you pick up this book bag and walk over there, using them as suicide bombers. This has been reported on. If you don't believe it, look it up. Look it up. Like there's so many elements to this war that are just not highlighted. And I think that because of that, it creates no feeling to act. There's no flame under people's feet And so none of this comes from malice. It comes from rage towards the current situation that I don't want to direct towards anyone in particular, but I am not afraid to, because God damn it, I love this cause so deeply. I will die for it, I will fight for it, and I will dig in my heels to the end on it, because I believe principally as an American that my country has failed, and I feel a personal responsibility for both being a person that's in the know and for having a U.S. passport and for paying taxes into the system. So I want to engage earnestly. That's the perspective I've come from. That's why instead of Track APAC has no ambassador program. We do something really completely different with only some few similarities to what Track APAC does. We have an outreach program because we want to engage authentically, because we want to. And so I think the combination of, some might call it the carrot and stick approach, some people might call it the accountability approach, some people might call it, whatever. We have seen so much more progress in the last few days than I could have ever imagined. I thought that it would be at least until after we launched and we got some posts out there and we did X, Y, and Z. I thought it would at least be until then that we would actually see marked progress. That is not the case. We are seeing immediate progress before the program has even been launched. Let me tell you some of the progress that we've had. Number one, it's being promoted by the two biggest fundraising outlets, organizations in the left-wing streaming space right now, liberal left, as in putting a big tent. I'm talking about the organizations that go out there just to fundraise. Fundraise or help candidates canvas, help candidates phone bank, volunteer, and fundraising. These types of machines that are not just checking in money, but checking in volunteers. Progressive Victory, Ground Game, they didn't just come out and say, oh, this is kind of cool. Ground Game and Progressive Victory have come out, and since what I said about the Progressive Victory event, have explicitly endorsed not only from Ukraine and supporting Ukraine, because they are mostly pro-Ukraine people in Progressive Victory. Actually entirely, to be honest, entirely. And I spoke with the rank and file after my stream. I was in those chats just endlessly talking. I would talk for like 8 to 10 hours. I will work harder. I promise you. For the one person who thinks maybe we can be, negligent on this, maybe we can't ignore it. Maybe I can recruit another streamer to fight Dylan on it, which would just bring more attention to this issue. That would help me. I hope, honestly, if you're going to be confrontational and say screw Ukraine, I hope you do that, because then you'll make the campaign an issue about your support for Ukraine or lack of support, and not housing and healthcare and things that progressives can win on. Because again, supporting Ukraine is a winnable thing. Not supporting it is something that will make you lose or just be a weight upon you. But my conversation with the rank and file, we were doing straw polls down there. 100%, 95%, 100%, 95%, over and over and over again, of this rank and file wanting to get on board with this program. And so because of that, I got endorsements of our efforts, not just of Ukraine, and my conversations with Progressive Victory have been stellar. At this point, I can say that the conversations are going in a very positive direction to having hard lines when it comes to dealing with the fire. Now, from my discussions, and I've talked to quite a bit of their leadership now, I've talked to everybody but Sam about this at this point. At this point, Ukraine is a fire. It is a crisis. It is the largest war in Europe since World War II and the largest war on the planet. And so to say that's not an issue that is mandatory is to say, well, this wildfire in my state, I don't have a position on it, or I'm not going to make. How can you not have a position on an immediate crisis that needs to be dealt with? Because my counterpoint I heard from some people at PV was, well, hopefully later we can convince people down the line, XYZ. And it's like, okay, 4 years from now, fantastic. That'll be great. Once you've won this ideological struggle, once all the mass graves are filled. Like that, to me, There's no time to wait. It's been going on 5 years. They have to wait long enough. If Democrats take back the House, there needs to be action. And for that reason, things like fires, natural disasters, mass health epidemics, wars, these are crises that you cannot compromise on. They are immediate catastrophes of the humanity, of the human spirit. It's at all levels, it crushes your soul, and it actually crushes and kills you physically. These types of crises, they cannot be negotiable. They cannot be something that we are flexible on when it comes to whether you should or should not do something. Should or should not. Should or should we not put out the fire? Is not a debate to have. The question is, how quickly can you scatter to get the bucket? And whether you're going to use the bucket that's in range or the hose that's in range, or you're going to have a plane come over and dump gallons of water on it, that's the debate to be had as you're taking action. The debate is not whether or not action is to be taken. Action is to be taken, especially in a Democratic Party that is, like, again, over 90% supportive of Ukraine. This can only be a wait for candidates. I hope one day there is a candidate stupid enough to think, oh, maybe I'll just recruit, you know, this streamer, and I'll get this streamer to fight this streamer. I'll get this new, or I'll get with this publication. It just, you got to know what party you're running in, dog. But at the end of the day, it cannot be negotiable. And that has been a message that is received. It's been received by PV. And I think that they're going to, well, change course. Also, I'm a stickler. And while I was in PV yesterday, you know, and I asked the candidate, a man running in New Jersey, a guy who did hospital work in Gaza, good guy, that's humanity's work, God's work on earth. I got him to commit to holding the Democrats accountable when it comes to defensive aid if they take back the House. And I also got to talk to the community manager and some other staff members, as well as the rank and file, afterwards about this project. They gave me the platform after they had him on to talk about this project. And I had the community manager on there saying, hey, Dylan found this in the bylaws. And what the bylaws says is that basically we forgot. I guess there was a dusty part of the bylaws, like somebody forgot. It's like you go to the Constitution, you blow off some dust. Oh, I didn't know we had this amendment. And it essentially says that there was 2 tiers for what was and was not mandatory positions for candidates to have. And Palestine and Ukraine was supposed to be in the mandatory tier, but certain candidates hadn't taken the pledge due to both the time that they made the pledge before it was formed in that way, and it seems a lack of due diligence. I think that in the rush to get the candidates out there, to be supportive, to get the phone banking underway, reading every bylaw is not always done. But let me tell you, again, I will dig my heels in. If there's a problem with a bylaw in your organization, I will find it. And if I won't find it, someone else will. Point is, it seems to me that Progressive Victory is very willing to change. And I heard one response at one point about, well, Dylan, could we maybe wait until the meeting in 4 to 5 to 6 months? I rejected it. I said, no, that's not acceptable. The war is not happening in 4 to 5 to 6 months necessarily. It is happening today. I hope it's not happening in 4 to 5 to 6 months, but we need commitments now before the votes are cast. The whole purpose of the organization, we cannot compromise on this because I like one candidate or somebody's a friend or I like somebody at PV. We cannot compromise on documenting their record. As long as we know their record and we've engaged with them and now we have an idea of what the record really is after having an earnest engagement, we have to list it on principle, or our organization is being tilted in favor of whatever candidate I like. I like Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is a Democrat that I think stands on principle. I appreciate what he's doing on the Epstein files. I appreciate his dedication to transparency, campaign finance reform. He's a progressive that, while I'm sure I could find things to disagree with on, and I generally like, as much as you can like a politician, and you should never truly like a politician, honestly, in my view. But I'm not going to alter Ro Khanna's ranking in the system because I like him. Mind you, as far as I know, he still supports defensive aid to Ukraine because he understands that the Russians have been offered ceasefires and he's rejected it. He's been in office, he's engaged with the reality, and he's come to the conclusion that, oh, Huh. I guess the Russians do want an empire. I guess when Vladimir Putin wrote an essay a few months before the war to publish it for the Russian intelligentsia, where he said Ukraine can either exist as part of the Russian world or not at all, that he wasn't speaking in like idioms. It wasn't like a folksy Russian, oh, the deep Russian soul was being hidden. No. He was clear about what he believed. He was clear about what he believes on Tucker Carlson's show, and he's been clear in all of his Reddit tier posting about history since. So I said, like, no, that's not something I would really accept. We're waiting until 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 months down the line. And since there's this thing with the bylaws, and since they've engaged so positively, I am to be believed at this point that there will be an alteration. Now, I'm not saying I know that for sure. I'm just saying that every single sign points in that direction. Now, I'm going to continue to shake PV's hand with an LBJ vigor until we get over the line. Ground game's already committed, and the fact that ground game committed within 10 seconds probably did only add a little bit to the pressure. You don't want to be outflanked by the libs when it comes to being more progressive on any issue, really, do you? As a progressive victory. So at this point, all the conversations have been positive. I think we're going to move forward. There's some people I still haven't spoken to on it. I haven't spoken to Sam on it yet. I haven't been called to any meeting with him. I've spoken to other people. I have a point man on this at this point that I keep going back and forth with. I think that right now it's just a question of formalization, like a formal, change to make sure that both the bylaws that are currently in place are being enforced instead of being ignored, and that we have these standards, as well as public acknowledgement of these standards being created, because of course, as an organization, we care about the stigma. We care about that there is a stigma for abandonment of allies. America should not act like a snake. So far, I honestly thought that would take a lot more time. I had an idea of how it would go, but I think that there were probably people at PV that looked down the tunnel and said it would be much better to engage earnestly with them. Right after the stream, they called me right away. I was like right from my stream with Soy Pill, right to a call with PV. So I want to give credit for the engagement, the quick engagement. I also want to say that PV has told me that they will act as an intermediary for campaigns on this issue. We've already gotten one campaign to commit to the progressive position of holding the Democrats to the fire when it comes to supporting Ukraine, not abandoning them, using the majority that we'll hopefully get in order to take some action. And I would like to see more candidates take that commitment. And they have told me that they are going to do their best to get us in a room with Hartzell. From what I was told, they're probably going to succeed in that. Right before I went live today, I gave the number of me and an ambassador that would have this meeting. Hopefully there can be a talk over the weekend. I think it would be very positive for everybody involved. I think Hartzell can get a better understanding of the war and of the perspective of somebody who has been displaced by both the Israeli invasions and bombings of Lebanon and the Russian invasions and bombing of Ukraine. And I think that unique perspective, I'm hoping, will be able to communicate exactly why we think it's important that we give Ukraine the support it needs to uphold its sovereignty, and that the right of self-determination is not only a deeply American principle, it is a deeply progressive principle. And so I didn't think we'd be scheduling meetings this quickly. I didn't think we'd get this much progress, but the reception has been so positive. And I guess the undercurrent, the ignored undercurrent, that some people might not see because it's just not where you're looking. The ignored undercurrent of people who want to act on Ukraine, who want to support Ukraine. It's been honestly really refreshing. It's like one of the first times I felt real hope about American people on this in a long time. And I want to thank everybody that has given us that reception. I want to thank the people at PV that decided that it was smarter to engage, you know, amicably to find a solution here where we could stand on real progressive values. And I am so excited to get to work. I'm so excited to get these materials out there. And we haven't launched the website yet, but I would like to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're looking at, where we're going with this. I don't want to give too much because I think it'll probably be better if everybody sees it the day of, because we're going to be launching probably on Saturday, I think is likely the date. We talked Friday, but giving us an extra day to like talk to a few more ambassador people who've lost their family members, people who've lost their kids. I mean, like we've the reception from Ukrainians, I also need to give credit to. The fact that they are so willing, people have lost their fathers, they're so willing to engage has been absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I think we're probably going to launch on Saturday. Here is what the website looks like at this point. It's kind of blurry. We're leaving it blurry to tease you. It's also because the screenshot's not all that good. That's my cope. Oh wait, this is a better one. Now you can see it. But yeah, you can see. I mean, we're well underway. We're gonna change that byline. That's just a test byline. Do your candidate support Ukraine freedom? We're gonna change the tracker. I think you know, the tracker. I was thinking we're gonna make it say occupation everywhere is a crime, and then have like independent slogans in different languages. We've got like the Instagram feed has now been updated. We're also working on adding a district map so you can enter in your zip code or address for address would be easier, zip code would be harder just due to the, you know, how zip codes can overlap with districts sometimes. But we're probably going to add that down the line. I can't guarantee that, but we do have people who want to work on that, and I think it'd be really cool if you could get an instant answer instead of having to look through like legislative records on whether or not the person you would like to vote for has voted for Ukraine aid or is supportive of it. So we're building the infrastructure here. And it's a volunteer-led organization. Let me just be clear that this is all funded out of my pocket. And I will go to the bottom of my pocket funding it. That's not to say I'd like to go to the bottom of my pocket funding it, but I will. Because the money is much better being serviced for a righteous cause than it is being serviced in my wallet, getting me more Steam gift cards. And an endless supply of Lido's pizza. I'm from the DMV, born and raised. Okay, look. I think that this is going to be some of our best work. If you guys want to get involved, we're a volunteer organization. You can go to DylanBurnsTV@gmail.com and reach out. But the better place to reach out is WeTrackUkraine@gmail, because I would like to kind of consolidate the people who are trying to volunteer. We would appreciate people who would be willing to edit the graphics and like post them weekly. We have people for that, but it's harder to manage when I'm on the front line. And so having a backlog of people would be helpful, because it's going to be difficult to like review posts while I'm in Konstantinivka filming with civilian evacuators, especially when those civilian evacuators are actively getting hit. The people I want to go with, like, my God, I'm so sorry for Eugene in that mission, but like he lost the 83-year-old grandma was evacuating and the 64-year-old. It was a tragedy when the Russians struck it. They've been hunting the aid workers out there for a while, and I just wish more people knew about it. But doing that type of work obviously is going to take me away from this, and so I need people who can be there when I'm not there. I'll get somebody there to manage it while I'm not there, but I'm also going to need people for the graphics. We already have a base graphics system. It's just going to be a lot of changing some, changing the text, changing the vector files to replace the candidates, and making other pieces of media. As since we have access to Ukraine, to a bunch of different journalists who are also interested in this project, we could also produce a lot of material from Ukraine, which would mean designers for that would be good, people to help perfect that, make that look better. So if you want to volunteer for anything like that, WeTrackUkraine@gmail.com. And if you want to help with the research, that means digging around. And I mean digging around. I mean going through anything that's ever been posted. And let me tell you, if you made some bad posts, now's the time to delete them. Don't even bother, though. We got the Wayback Machine. Going through posts, going through voting records, going through blogs, going through podcasts and literally listening to the whole thing and looking for the Ukraine sections and listening to them to figure out whatever has been said. The war has been going on for 5 years. As much as I will help somebody learn more about it, or we can help somebody learn more about it and broaden their horizons, it is still not an excuse at this point if you're running for office or in office and you don't know what you're doing on it. So I think with that, that's everything I really wanted to say about this. I'm so happy with the positive reception. I'm happy that Progressive Victory is working with us, and we're working towards making sure no money and no phone banking time and no canvassing time and no volunteer time is dedicated towards candidates who won't take the Ukraine support pledge. I'm happy that that's the direction that it seems to be going in, but of course, we don't want to give too much credit until something is formalized. But their engagement with me shows to me that they really care. I've been with PV longer than any other creator. I think the only other one is Irish Laddie, and he would beat me by 1 day. 1 day. So, and I think he might have actually been one of the people who brought me up that got me on it, okay? So I've been with them basically as long as anyone else has. And so whether it was that or the earnestness of my position or the fact that basically everybody at PV agrees essentially with what I'm putting forward, I'm just really positive. I just want to give like positive praise for that engagement. Again, this is not an intimidation campaign, though that is politics. I want to first convince people, but that does not mean that wanting to earnestly engage in a positive manner will remove the element of accountability. Both must be held on the table to make people act. I don't need people to act on this because they like me. I don't even need people to act on Ukraine because they support Ukraine. I just need them to act, because that's the only way anything will get done. Let's make sure that is the case. At We Track Ukraine, We Track Ukraine. Cannibal better edit that out, make me look better. He won't, mind you. We Track Ukraine at gmail.com, at Track Ukraine on Twitter or X, at Track Ukraine on Instagram, and at Track Ukraine on Blue Sky. Hope to see you there. Let's keep the record straight.